Good day, class. My name is Bashir Ibrahim, and today's class I'll be taking one of the important topics in microeconomics, the elementary level. At the end of this class, we are expected to know the meaning of demand, individual reason to demand, the law of demand, demand schedule and curve, the classification of goods, determinant of demand, expansion of an increase in demand, contraction of and decrease in demand, and market demand curve. Now, what do we mean by demand? Demand is the willingness and the ability or the desire of a consumer to buy a particular goods. Before you can say you define the demand, those key points must be mentioned before the demand would occur. Now, one of them is the willingness. The willingness, ability, and the desire at a particular time. The willingness is the customer or the consumer is not being forced to buy a particular product, that is willing and ready to buy that product at that particular time, and the ability is irrespective of the price assigned to that good. It has the capacity to buy, and the desire is also there. The utility is expected to derive at that particular time. So the demand is the willingness, the ability, and the desire of a consumer to buy a particular product at a particular time. So we are talking about the reason for demand. What is the motive, individual motive or the consumer motive to buy a particular product? One of it is the price of the product itself, and we call this to be an objective factor. The price of the product itself determines the reason why we demand the product. Let's say a particular consumer that used to buy a particular goods every month. So whether the increase or decrease of price will determine the quantity purchased of that price. Then we also have another one, which is the substitute goods. That is a goods that have a similar. For example, now let's talk about the Bournvita and Milo. Bournvita and Milo. Now, as we all know that this, we may derive the same satisfaction from consuming this product. So it's when the price of a substitute goods increasing, then the quantity demanded for other good products also increase. Let's assume the price of Milo increase today, the quantity that will be demanded for the Bournvita will also increase. This is what we call a substitute goods, meaning a substitute goods also determine the reason why people demand for a particular product. Then we also have what we call a complementary goods. A complementary goods is the goods that we consume together to derive the same satisfaction. Let's say cylinder and gas, for example. Now, you cannot use cylinder without gas, and you cannot use petrol without stove. But these move in opposite direction. That is, when the price of one is increasing, the quantity demanded for the other one also increasing. This is one of the reasons why people demand for a particular product. Then the taste, the fashion, and preferences is also part of why people demand for a particular goods. If you lost the taste on that particular goods, people may decide not to buy it. Now, let's look, for example, now the toothpaste that we are using before the Pepsodent, the Rapid Action, and all that. There are particular toothpaste that is most common in our communities. Sorry for mentioning the name. Let's say Close-Up, for example. Now, Close-Up before now is one of the best toothpaste that we have in this country. But now, gradually, people are now losing taste for that product. Even though in Nigeria now we go to the market and say, I want to go and buy a toothpaste Close-Up, and we are coming back with another product for you to say that people don't probably prefer that product again. Then the preferences is also determined. The preferences mean that a lot of people have the skill of preferences. Why do you need this product now before this? As a student now, I need a pen, I need the book. There's some other product, probably the school fees. Then the scale of preferences also determine the quantity purchased by the consumer. Now, what is now the law of demand? The law of demand, we say other things remaining unchanged or ceteris paribus, then the more of demand, the more of goods will be demanded at the lower price and less at the higher price, which means it's opposite direction. When the price of the goods is coming down, the quantity demanded by the consumer increasing. It goes up, it's increasing. That's say that the law of demand or ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus means that other things remain the same. That is, all other factors that can also determine the demand was held constant, while we consider only the price of the product itself. At this point now, under the law of demand, we only consider the price of the product itself, that we call an objective factor of demand, and we add all other shift or the subjective factor constant. And other subjective factor we are talking about here is the price of related goods, the complementary goods, the income of the consumer, the taste preferences and what, and the fashion of the consumer. Now, what do we mean by demand schedule? A demand schedule shows the tabular relationship between the price and the quantity demanded. Let's say we have this. Here we have the price, and here we have the quantity. Using this table to illustrate the effect of demand, let's say we have 6 here. When the price of this good X is 6 naira, then the consumer purchase 10 quantity for that goods. Then the price reduced from 6 naira to 5 naira, then the consumer purchase what? 20 naira. Reduced from 5 naira to 4 naira, then purchase 30 naira. Then 3 naira to what? Purchase 40 naira, and from 3 naira to 2 naira, then purchase 50. Then this to 1, purchase what? 60. This is what we call a tabular representation of demand. That is, as price is increasing, the quantity demanded is what? Is decreasing. Now, when the price is 1 naira, the consumer is able to buy the 60 quantity of this particular goods. But when the price increased from 1 naira to 2 naira, he was able to buy 50 quantity of that goods. So shows that as price is increasing, the quantity demanded is also what? Is decreasing, right? And as price is also decreasing, the quantity demanded is what? Is increasing. This is what we call a tabular representation of what? Of demand. Now, the curve just shows the graphical illustration of demand. It just shows the graphical illustration of what? Just that, of demand. The graphical illustration of what? Of demand. That as we have it here, we can demonstrate graphically, right? But there are two things involved here. When we have the demand, under the demand curve can be linear and non-linear. It can be linear and non-linear. What we have here is linear, and what we have here is non-linear. But when we have it to be linear like this, it means that the relationship between the price and quantity is perfect. That is, a 1% increase in price here will bring about 1% decrease in quantity demanded. Right? That a 1 or 2%, the exact percentage we have in increase in price will bring about the same percentage decrease in what? The quantity demanded. They have the same effect. 10%, 10%, 20%, 20%. But the other one that we call a non-linear does not mean that it does not follow the law of demand. It doesn't follow the law of demand. But what we have here is when one is increasing by 10%, the other one is decreasing but not at the same rate. But not at the same rate. And that's why we have it like this. Please take note. When you have it like this, it's also in line with the law of demand. But when you have it straight line like this, we call it a linear demand curve. But when you have it like, we call this to be a non-linear demand curve. But when it's straight like this, that means the percentage change in price is the same percentage change in what? The quantity demanded. One increased by 10%, the other one is decreasing by what? 10%. But when we have it like this, it's also in line with the law of demand, but not at the same rate. Please take note of this. Now, under the classification of goods, So here we have what we call a substitute goods. Under the substitute goods here, a good is said to be substitute, right? If the price of X is increasing, if the price of S is increasing and the quantity demanded for Y is also increasing, right? That the quantity demanded of Y is what is also increasing. This is what we call a substitute goods. And a substitute goods is the good that has a similar product. Like we said the other time, that you can either use the Milo or Bonfita. You can use Milo or what? Or Bonfita. But under the substitute, because that good is a substitute good, when the price of one is increasing, the quantity demanded for the other one will also be what? We also increase. So you need to know here that the substitute goods is moving in the same direction. Is moving in the same direction. As the price of one is increasing, the quantity demanded is also what? It's also increasing. There are another one that we have under the classification of goods. We have what we call a complementary good. A complementary goods class. Another name for complementary goods is joint goods. The joint good, that is the good that you cannot consume one unless you consume the two together, and you consume the two together to give the same satisfaction. For example, now we mention of cylinder and gas. Cylinder and gas. You cannot use cylinder without gas. You cannot use the car without petrol. So these are the quantity, the two quantities you buy together and you consume this together to derive the same what? The same satisfaction. And in using this, then the direction of these two goods is moving in opposite direction. You know, when under the substitute we say when the price is increasing, the quantity demanded for the other product is what? Is also increasing. But under the complementary goods, when the price of the product is increasing, the quantity demanded for the other product is what? Is decreasing. Is decreasing. That means the two products we are talking about here is moving as opposite or inversely relationship. When one is increasing, the other one is what? Is decreasing. Then another one that we have under the classification of goods, we have what we call a normal good. We have what we call a normal good. Class. The good is said to be normal. That the goods, it's said to be normal when the quantity demanded is increasing as the income of the consumer is what? Is increasing. That good is said to be normal. That is, somebody that is staying in a room and parlor cell when your salary is 150,000, but suddenly your salary was increased from 150,000 to 300,000, then you move to like 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom apartment. This is what we call a normal goods. That a normal goods exists as the quantity increasing when the income of the consumer was increasing. Then the opposite of this we call it to be inferior good. Inferior goods. Inferior goods now is opposite of the normal goods. That a good is said to be inferior when the quantity demanded is decreasing, when the income of the consumer was increasing. When the income of the consumer increasing, that you are expected to buy more of that product. This is when we now recorded the income of the consumer to be what? To be decreasing. At this point we call it to be what? Inferior goods. Somebody that is staying at that 2-bedroom apartment where you are collecting 250,000 as a salary. Your salary was now increased from 250,000 to 500, and you are expected to move to 3-bedroom apartment. Then you now move to a room and parlor cell. This is what we call what? Inferior goods. Or somebody that used to, eat at a particular joint. When your salary is down to 150,000, then when you now increase that money from 150,000 to 300,000, and you are expected to go to TFC, Tantalizer, Mr. Biggs, that's when you now continue visiting that same place. We call this to be what? Inferior goods. When the quantity demanded is not in line with the level of income of the consumer. Then the last one here we have what we call a giving goods. Giving or ostentation. Now, giving or ostentation is exception to the law of demand, right? It's exception to the law of demand because here, as the price of the commodity is increasing, the quantity demanded for that commodity is also what? It's also increasing. And that's why we call it exception. And the goods that fall under this category is known as luxury goods. Is known as luxury goods. Now let's say, for example, now the Range Rover of 2020 is expected to be less than the Range Rover of 2021. But people that we buy, we still buy, irrespective of the price. Even the one of 2023 now, people have started demanding, asking to customize with their taste. So this is what we call a giving or ostentation good, and it's known as what? Exception to the law of demand. Because as one is increasing, as price of that good is increasing, the quantity demanded is also what? Is also increasing. So now, determinant of demand. Determinant of demand. Class, let's divide this into two. Under determinant of demand, we have what we call objective factor and we have a subjective factor. Under the objective factor, and we have subjective factor. That is, a determinant. What is the factor that determines the quantity demanded?